Scott Bessent has laid out President Trump's economic plan for 2026, and it is interesting. According to Scott Bessent, the Trump economy in 2026 will be run hot. Expect big GDP numbers. Tariffs will become a strategic norm. The economy will be reprioritized, meaning we will stop depending on government contribution. Growth must outpace debt. So if we see debt rising at 2 or 3%, GDP must be larger. And finally, the Fed must be overhauled. So it will be interesting to see what transpires in 2026. Again, according to Scott Bessent, Trump's economic agenda is run the economy hot, leverage tariffs, reprioritize the economy, reprivatize the economy, growth faster than debt, and finally, the Fed will be overhauled. Very interesting to hear Scott Bessent lay that out so clearly. We'll see what happens, what does happen, what doesn't happen, but now at least we know what the plan is. As far as next week, remember Monday, tomorrow is a national holiday, Martin Luther King's birthday celebration. On Tuesday, no economic reports of note. Wednesday, we will get pending home sales. Pending home sales are expected to be up 1% month on month. Thursday, we will get our second GDP reading for Q3. We will also get the all-important and third inflation reading called PCE. PCE is important because, again, the Fed always talks inflation, but what they're really referring to is PCE core. So we will be paying attention to that on Thursday. Obviously, we also get weekly unemployment claims. Last week, again, surprised to the downside. And finally, on Friday, we will get consumer sentiment. So again, big week ahead for economic news. I do want to let you know, if you are a part of our school community, that in about 28 minutes, we will be going live with Jonathan Twomley. He is a weekly featured guest on this channel. He does big multifamily deals. We're going to talk about what he's seeing in the market, talk about the deals that are coming, and talk about how you can start networking with bankers and the like. So again, if you are a part of school, we are back to doing our Sunday conversations at 8 a.m. Also got next week already scheduled, Rich Somers from the Somers Report, somebody who does boutique hotel investing, will be talking with our school community. So join school, get part of these conversations, ask questions, network, learn some new things. We will see you in there. And then today, we have a super cool announcement. Last Friday, when we were doing the weekly wrap up with Ty, you guys asked for the uneducated economist, and he and I communicated. And surprise, surprise, we will go live at 9 a.m. on YouTube. So if you want to hear from the uneducated economist or myself and ask us questions, we will be live at 9 a.m. Pacific. So an hour and 27 minutes. Come back here. We will be live and going from there. Sorry, my throat is a little raspy this morning. Might be catching something. Oh, well. As for earnings next week, we do have some ones that we'll be looking forward to. We are in earnings season. D.R. Horton, obviously what's going on with home builders, Netflix and United, plus a whole bunch of regional banks. That'll start on Tuesday. Wednesday, we got J&J, Ally, and Charles Schwab. Thursday, Procter & Gamble, Intel, Capital One, and again, plenty of regional banks. And finally, on Friday, Comerica. It'll be interesting to look at the regional banks for me. This was the first quarter that the big banks did not all beat and raise. If you go back in time and we look at last quarter, the quarter before, all the big banks, Citi, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, they all beat and raised. And then all the regional banks came in and they were like, cool, we did the same thing. This quarter, not so good. Many of the big banks did not report great numbers. So it'll be interesting. Did the regional banks suffer more or less? I don't know, but we got to pay attention. Look at loan loss reserves, look at origination. Lots of exciting things going on at the regional bank level. So again, let's talk about the Fed. There's a whole bunch of Fed talk the last couple of days. A whole bunch. So we'll go through it all. Fed President Jefferson. Some upside risk remain, but expect inflation to return to 2%, to which I would say, no kidding. Have you looked at Trueflation? I didn't look this morning, but last time I looked at Trueflation, it was 1.51, 1.54, something like that, way under 2%. Rate cuts have brought the policy rate in the range of neutral. That is interesting. Again, nobody knows where neutral is, or sometimes called R star. But when a Fed president says we are at neutral, it means no cuts. That's what that means. Fed President Schmidt was all over the newswire. I think I got a couple from him. No room for complacency on inflation. We still have some Fed presidents focused on inflation, even though if you look at the actual data versus the old data, it's gone. Inflation was yesterday's story. Inflation is over. Tax policy and deregulation likely to boost investments in spending and demand. Schmidt is basically saying what Scott Bessent said. The economy will run hot in 2026. Pretty interesting. Schmidt also said labor market stress are structural and rate cuts will not patch them. That is interesting because remember, the Fed always tells us stable jobs and stable prices and full employment. What Schmidt just said is, hey, the job market's broken and we can't help you. That is something to pay attention to. Monetary policy is not very restrictive. So what he is telling you is he believes that rates are under neutral. So again, we've got some Fed presidents drawing some pretty distinguishable lines just with their vocabulary. Fed President Daly said labor market is stabilizing and inflation is expected to improve. Why is the Fed so far behind on inflation? I just don't get it. Fed President Barkin, hard to put weight on data from the past 3 months. Barkin is basically saying the data the last 3 months suck, government shutdown, noise, nonsense. He doesn't believe them, which I suppose is one way to look at the data. Fed President Bostic, we need to stay restrictive because inflation is too high. I expect to see GDP growth over 2% in 2026. Again, I think Bostic is out of tune, out of date, not paying attention, but it is what it is. Goolsby, man, lots of Fed speak the last 48 hours. Pretty crazy. Growth is solid. Yeah, I would say so. Did you see the GDP print? 5.4? Crazy. Service inflation not yet under control. I agree with that. And again, it's really interesting because a lot of people have been focused on tariffs, which is a goods inflation. Doesn't seem to be in the cards. However, services inflation, that's different. That's wages. That's wage growth. That's wage spiral. That's all that stuff. I expect to see Fed rate cuts later this year. So he's putting something later, maybe June. I think that's the current odds. Last Fed speak was Fed Kashkari. The economy is confusing. The job market shows sign of weakness. All right. Interesting. We did get the Fed Beige Book, and really what the Fed Beige Book told us last week is 8 of the 12, so 75% of the regions were growing, which is a good thing. So it's had some slight growth. Again, what else do we got? Yes, let's congratulate some people for joining school. Thank you. Yvette, John, Marquise, Ted, and Stephanie. Thank you all for joining school. We'll hopefully see you in our Sunday session at 8 a.m. Hopefully we'll see you there. Don't forget to introduce yourself and all of that. And then, folks, I don't know if you saw it on Friday, but Ty actually talked me into buying 20 extra seats for our event in Vegas. Ticket sales were supposed to stop on Friday. Ty beat me up. Quite frankly, if you watch the video, I did not want to do this, but we kind of agreed to release an extra 20 tickets. One of those is sold already, so we are down to 19 tickets. There are only 19 tickets left to our Vegas event. So if you want to come, first serve. That once those are gone, they're gone. And I will start focusing on the event. So if they sell, great. If they don't, no big deal. But we will see you in Vegas. You got one last chance to get your tickets to Vegas. And finally, don't forget that Steadily is the sponsor of the Daily Financial News. Again, they saved Olivia and I over $6,000 last year on several properties. So if you are a landlord, it behooves you to get a quote. Maybe they can help, maybe they can't, but you don't know unless you try. I'll see you guys in school in about 20 minutes. Take care. Later.